Hi, I'm Madeline James, and I'm going to take you on an experiment where I try out annotating while I read. I love reading, and I love having books on my bookshelf, and I love being able to go back and look at them and sort of reminisce on the stories that I loved, the characters that I loved, and really just revisit these really cool worlds and places. But I also have a really bad memory, which makes that difficult. I have reread a number of books and not realized that I've already read them until I'm like 2/3 of the way through and just something clicks and I'm like, wait a second. I read this entire book like 2 years ago. And that happens to me an embarrassing amount. So I think annotating will be a really helpful way for me to be able to kind of reference these books and hopefully help them to stick in my mind a little bit better. I've seen studies that say that annotating while you read can help with retention and stuff. I've seen some studies that say it doesn't, so I imagine it's just really up to the person. And since I have so much trouble remembering these types of things, I'm thinking maybe it'll be really great for me. As a fantasy writer, I also think it would be helpful to kind of go through and really make note of and break down and understand the structures and the world building that some of my favorite books are using, just to help me really learn the craft better. And I think this will also help with the world building analysis I do for my review series. So we're gonna find out. This experiment is largely inspired by a couple of videos by Murphy Napier, who is a booktuber, and I love her channel, but she is a big annotator and has kind of walked through her process, and that is definitely where I got the idea for this video. The annotating system I'm going to use for this experiment is definitely inspired by hers, but it's a little bit different. There's going to be three main components: in-margin notes, highlighting, and sticky note tabs. The in-margin notes are going to be comments, maybe scene summaries, chapter summaries, pointing out structural beats, pointing out like plot twists, things like that. And I think it'll be really good sort of exercises, I guess, for structure craft to be able to identify and understand these sort of beats as I go. So I'll try it. For highlighting, I'm going to start with 3 colors. Green for world building, just to help with analysis, for good reference, that sort of thing. Blue for structural things like beats, twists. Red and pink for like loved quotes or anything else that I just like really love and want to be able to look back to. And then the sticky note tabs I'm going to use are just going to mark all of those other things. So I'll have blue for structural, green for world building, and I think I have red, which will be loved quotes and any other just assorted in-margin notes that I have in there for easy reference. So as I go through and annotate this book for the experiment, I'm going to be looking to kind of pay attention to how painful the process is, how much it disrupts my enjoyment of actually reading, how long it takes, and how useful I think it is for me. And that's going to help me determine how successful this experiment was and whether or not I want to keep doing it. I'm going to try doing this reread of For the Wolf by Hannah Whitten for the next, I guess, world building analysis review that I do. And I'm going to use this book for this experiment, which is, the world building notes and highlighting and stuff that I do in this book will kind of be what I use for that review. So I think that'll be a really good kind of way to tell if this is really useful in that way. And it's also a reread, so I think I'll have a good idea of whether or not I enjoy it as much the second time around doing this process. But yeah, let's see how it goes. So, for someone that's never annotated before, writing in this book felt very sacrilegious, but I've made my first highlight, I've made my first note. the rest should be easier. Hi. So I already had all my filming stuff out, so I thought I would give you a little bit of an update on my annotating experiment. It's been going a lot slower than I expected. It is January 6th or something, so I started this like weeks ago, maybe a month ago. I don't know. I think the fact that I've already read this means that I'm a little bit less motivated to like read it again. I'm not a big rereader. I'm really not. But once I get going, I have a lot of fun with it. It's just really hard for me to pick up because I'm like, I could read a new book or write or play video games. We've been obsessively playing Valheim lately. It's brilliant. But I just thought I'd give a quick update. I did also get stalled for a while because I had to buy a bunch of new sticky note things because the ones I had, I ran out of the world building ones really quickly. So let's see if you can see this. You can see sort of where I switched over and how far I've gotten. I'm about halfway through. But you can sort of see at the beginning, blue is my, like plot point, structural things that are happening. There really wasn't a lot that happened, really, other than setup. So you see a lot of, dispersal fairly evenly of the blues and the greens throughout. Which is good, world building and plot kind of happening together, because a lot of this, because it's more of like an atmospheric world mystery kind of thing, we're learning more about the world as it goes. You kind of see those hand in hand. I only have like 4 pink ones, which is like quotes and things that I really like. I think partially it's just my reading style to not notice those as much, but I'm getting better at it, and I think these quotes are good ones. I think the first one, let me check. Yeah, that's just like, I think that's like on all the like marketing material. I did also do a couple of little purple dudes, and these are places where I took like physical notes, and those were basically like things I noticed about her writing style that I was like, this is interesting, or, you know, not like bad things, but just like things to note that I may not have noticed if I wasn't paying attention. So like, here's the beginning of chapter 9. Don't read the words because maybe there's spoilers. I don't know. But you can see, based off the structure of it, it's a lot of exposition. It's a lot of inner dialogue, things happening without there being really much going on. And this is something that I feel like I've been not doing a lot in my writing, where once I have like 3 or 4 paragraphs of exposition, I'm like, oh, something better happen or people are gonna, you know, get bored. But it's just a good example of like a kind of slow moment where you can really kind of settle into the characters and the growth that they're making and the things that they're thinking. So I just wanted to note that. But yeah, I'm on page 240, chapter 19 out of, actually not that far from the end. 430, so I'm more than halfway. Yeah. I'll check back in when I'm done. Hello. I am not going to apologize for not doing my makeup and wearing pajamas. I'm very comfortable right now, so we're just gonna move on. I finished the annotation experiment, so I did it. This went pretty well. I think there are some things that I did that maybe made this less of an effective experiment, and some things that maybe made it more of an effective experiment, but I enjoyed doing it. I am very curious to see how it goes if I have not read the book before, but I also think that the things that I find it helpful to point out are a little different as a writer than maybe the things that a reader would be looking for. I imagine someone who's more just a reader or just reading books from a reading perspective would want to annotate on slightly different things than I do. Like, you know, I was marking world building, I was marking plot things. They'd be marking more like, I guess, things they like, thoughts they had, that sort of a thing. So I definitely didn't find myself doing that. I have 4 pink tabs, which is basically the things that I like cool lines. And that's it. So like, they're just like things I liked that stood out. And I didn't have that many of them. I didn't have a lot of thoughts that I wrote in there that were just like thoughts of things I thought about, I guess. That isn't how I kind of ended up going about this. But I think this was really, really helpful from a plot perspective. So basically every time new information was revealed, a question was posed, like basically anything that you would think of as a plot device in any way almost, I was kind of marking, and that's all my blue ones. And this made it really helpful to kind of be aware of those things. And I think as a writer, it can be very beneficial to be able to notice those things in other books so that you can kind of understand what's happening and be able to see all the variations for how things can be done and how certain beats can be done, and then that could fuel other ideas for how to replicate it in your own story. I feel like there's this journey where, you know, you're just writing and you maybe have a very general understanding of this 3-act story structure. And by journey, I mean, this is my journey. And then I started, after I wrote the first draft of my first book, I started really researching structure and different types of devices and how it's really supposed to work in a more technical way. So like that's when I actually started to learn about like Save the Cat beats, and a lot more involved in the 3-act structure and the desire, fear, misbelief trio, the difference between like a plot twist, a plot hinge, a plot point, you know, all those kinds of things. But it's really hard, I found, to kind of really understand those and really think of ways to implement them that is, I guess, gives you creative flexibility and allows you to understand what you're accomplishing so that you know, based off your story and what you're doing, kind of how you want that to work. Also, hold on. My husband gave me a gift for my birthday. Let's see. Hue lights. There's a little light out there. Entryway. Boom! 1 button click and it turns on a little live light out there. I'll try and, I don't know, maybe I'll show you later. But so that he knows that I'm filming and not to come in here unless he has to. But yeah, so my point is going through here and pointing those things out is really helpful for me to kind of understand and dissect the craft. And I think that's going to be something that I'm going to want to do in the future. And I think that as I do it more, I'm going to get better at it. So basically what I did here, and I'm going to do a different video about this, but I marked everything I thought was a plot point, and then I had this other notebook, which this goes beyond annotating. But I basically marked like information from each scene, where I wrote, you know, what kind of happened, if it like advanced the plot, which plots it had to do with, just general stuff like that so that I'd remember what happened in that scene. And then I've been kind of going through and mapping those things to plot lines, marking where my plot points were, marking where, you know, the break into 2 is the break into 3, what is the Dark Night of the Soul, going through and kind of actually identifying what those moments were, so that I can kind of make some kind of visuals for it. And I'm going to do a whole video breaking that down, because I think it's really cool. But back to the annotating experiment, I think that doing this, and maybe I'll need to do it another time or two, but I feel like as I'm reading, I'll be able to start recognizing those as I read without having to like really deeply analyze it afterwards to understand what I'm reading. Like if I can just read a book and while I'm going be like, oh, that's the plot twist, or oh, we're breaking into 2, or, you know, this is the midpoint. I feel like that would really help me as a writer, and I think it would help me as a reader too. I don't know. But I really enjoyed it. I'm not sure how much I'll keep doing the tabs and stickies. I think it was helpful from a world building point of view. So like doing a world building view of it, review, having those notes that I can reference was helpful. But I found taking notes ended up working a lot better for me. When you have a bunch of information split up in the book, like when you have these tabs, like you don't know what these tabs mean. Also, you can see I kind of stopped tabbing at the end. Yeah. But keeping these tabs helped, but you don't know what any of them are. So like if I want to think about the world building as a whole or the plot as a whole, this doesn't really help me because I can't get it all in my head at one time, and taking notes allows me to kind of look at that at once all together and think about it all together. Where if you're just doing this to do thoughts, things that you liked, I think it makes sense to do the annotating in the book. Especially if you reread or share your books, I think that makes a lot of sense. So, I don't know. I think this experiment was both a success and a failure. A failure because I didn't annotate all the way through, and it clearly wasn't something that I think that I'm going to keep doing this way in the future. However, it's a win because I think this helped me learn a lot about craft, helped me figure out a technique that'll work for me for continuing to learn more about craft in the future. And it was fun. It's fun. I like experiments like this. I want to do more of them. But yeah, I'd love to know if you annotate or if, you thought about doing it, what you think it could be helpful for you with. Because, there could be some things that I haven't thought about that could be beneficial because this is just, what I wanted to do. I'm sure there's a lot of different things that you can focus on when annotating. But yeah, I'm going to keep working on my next video, which is going to be, what is this? The, breaking down the structure and the plot of For the Wolf by Hannah Whitten. And I'm ridiculously excited about it, if I'm being completely honest. I also have this other video idea. I don't know why I'm rambling. I'm just excited. I apologize. But I want to do a world building video where I basically reverse create the climate classifications or zone of Earth based off my world building process. I'm very excited about it, because basically, I don't need to tell you about this. I'm sorry, I'm going to have a video coming out about it, so if you want to see that when it comes out, or want to see my structure breakdown when it comes out, subscribe, but yeah, comment, whatever, like the video if you liked it, and I'll see you next time.